Hey, yo, what's up, y'all? It's DJ Sal here, back at it with another video, man. You already know we filming movies, man. And we got another reaction video for y'all today. We got the 7 greatest NFL trades that almost happened. Man, if y'all don't know, I love football, so you know now. And let's jump right into it, man. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
From the NFL,
I appreciate it.
Oftentimes, there are trades made in NFL history that can completely shake the fiber of the entire league. But there are also times where two teams are very close to completing a deal, and then that almost happened. And guys, if you see the reason why some of these trades did not get completed, you're just going to shake your head. Before we get to the content, guys, if you're new to the channel, please take a moment to subscribe and turn my notifications on. If you're already subscribed and you have blind faith that this content is going to be awesome, drop a like, because every like increases the likelihood that you guys would see my videos. I also live stream on Twitch on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays at 8 p.m. Pacific time. And I think that's about it. Break!
Don't know, I do make beats, man. Hit me up. I'm about to go to New York City next week. I'm probably gonna vlog that, so I'll be uploading that to the channel. Hopefully I got more views and all that going on, so stay tuned.
Let's get straight to it, guys. Number one is the Philadelphia Eagles send Nick Foles, LaShawn McCoy, and draft picks to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the #1 overall pick. And for the life of me, I cannot understand why they didn't accept this, because you get your quarterback of the future, you get LaShawn McCoy, and you get a boatload of draft picks. This happened in 2015, and this was during a time where the Philadelphia Eagles had a mad scientist by the name of Chip Kelly as their head coach. Chip Kelly had full control of the Philadelphia Eagles, and you clearly could understand what he's trying to do here. One of the top prospects in this NFL draft was Marcus Mariota, his former quarterback when he was coaching at Oregon, and he was projected to be either the #1 overall pick or the #2 overall pick. And the only problem with this was that Mariota was probably going to go #2 in the draft that year, and the Titans weren't really interested in a trade either. And this is fairly ironic because both the #1 overall pick and #2 overall pick are no longer on the same roster as the team that drafted them. Now, here was what the proposal was. The Eagles offered to trade with Tampa Bay, who had the #1 overall pick, and the Eagles offered Nick Foles, LaShawn McCoy, and 3 first-round draft picks in exchange for the #1 overall pick. Could you think about that for a second? If this trade got accepted, I would have fired Chip Kelly for completely gutting out my roster and mortgaging our future. Now, what's crazy about this is the fact that the Buccaneers turned this down, and this is apparently a rumor, but the trade would have made a lot of sense considering the fact that Chip Kelly at the time was desperate for a new quarterback. In the end, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers drafted Jameis Winston, the Tennessee Titans drafted Marcus Mariota, and at the end of the day, Nick Foles and LaShawn McCoy left the Philadelphia Eagles in separate trades. Now, I'm going to call this 1B because I feel like we wouldn't be doing you guys justice if we...
Just got to keep playing, keep working, whatever you do, just keep grinding.
New Gillette antiperspirant. Feel dry without worrying about irritation, even on those 72-hour days.
Hopefully it's just this.
Are you ready? Ready for that person, or place, or feeling? Whenever you're ready, we're ready to take you, with enhanced safety and cleaning protocols to make...
We didn't discuss what the Philadelphia Eagles offered the Tennessee Titans. The Philadelphia Eagles offered the Tennessee Titans their 2015 first-round pick, their 2015 second-round pick, their 2016 first-round pick, and any quarterback on their roster and any defensive player on their roster in exchange for the #2 overall pick. Which means, theoretically speaking, the Tennessee Titans would have been able to pull off a trade where they got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and Nick Foles and Fletcher Cox in return for a player that wouldn't end up being their quarterback of the future. Of course, hindsight's 2020, but come on, man. This is a complete franchise-altering trade. But also in their defense, this was the year that 2 Heisman Trophy QBs were at the top of the draft. Jameis and Marcus were considered to be surefire locks to be great players. That just never happened. At number 2, we're going to be discussing a head coach that almost got traded. This was at the end of the 2013 season, and it's how the Cleveland Browns almost got Jim Harbaugh. There were rumors at the end of the 2013 season that the 49ers front office wasn't happy with Jim Harbaugh and his abilities to almost win a Super Bowl. This all obviously happened before Jim Harbaugh left to coach at Michigan, and he would eventually get replaced by the very same Chip Kelly that we were discussing during the previous trade. Apparently, the trade involved the Cleveland Browns receiving multiple draft picks, and it's not really known what quality of draft pick was offered. What ended up messing up the deal was Jim Harbaugh himself. He didn't really want to go to the Cleveland Browns, and he had a no-trade clause in his contract. If this trade went through, however, we could all agree that the NFL and the NCAA would have been completely different. There's no doubt in my mind that Jim Harbaugh would have been able to make the proper decisions if he had full control of the Browns. This was the year that they drafted Justin Gilbert and Johnny Manziel in the first round of the NFL draft. Could you imagine if Harbaugh was able to draft, I don't know, anyone else besides Justin Gilbert? Because Anthony Barr, Eric Ebron, Taylor Lewan, Odell Beckham Jr., Aaron Donald, and Ryan Shazier, and Zach Martin were the players that were drafted after. Not to mention that Teddy Bridgewater and Derek Carr were still available when Johnny Manziel was drafted. One just has to wonder what Jim Harbaugh would have done, because he was known for being a phenomenal drafter. Ultimately, though, Jim Harbaugh would go to Michigan, and of course the Cleveland Browns have been mediocre ever since, although there was a glimpse of hope about 2 years ago. They're currently trying to make their first playoff appearance still. At number 3, we have Adrian Peterson almost getting traded to the Dallas Cowboys in 2015. Now, you have to remember, in the fall of 2014, Adrian Peterson was indicted on charges of reckless or negligent injury to his son after he beat his son with a branch. I don't really want to get into the whole story there. It's kind of dark, but the Dallas Cowboys, I don't know if you guys know, but Adrian Peterson's originally from Texas. And this is something that Jerry Jones took very, very seriously. These are the days before Ezekiel Elliott. The Dallas Cowboys star running back DeMarco Murray recently left the Cowboys to join the division rival Philadelphia Eagles, but the Cowboys still had this remarkable offensive line. So it made a lot of sense because Adrian Peterson was also in the twilight years of his career. And the thought was, if you get AP in that backfield and you have all these phenomenal offensive linemen creating space for him, good things were going to happen in Dallas. And guess what? Those rumors were actually true. Jerry Jones publicly stated that he'd be willing to look into the trade and even hinted at wanting to trade a first-round pick for Adrian Peterson. Now, it's very hard to dictate how serious those trade talks were, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that Jerry Jones really considered it. With that being said, it's not really hard to see why the trade fell through. The Vikings didn't want to trade Peterson, and he just turned 30 years old at the time. The Cowboys were getting really, really close to going over the cap, and he wasn't worth going over the cap for.
Did y'all see that coming?
But we all saw what ended up happening with Adrian Peterson. He's doing fairly well and aging really well for a running back, so you could only imagine what could have happened if he went to a team like the Dallas Cowboys instead of going to the New Orleans Saints, Arizona Cardinals, and now the Washington Redskins. This trade that we're going to discuss now is probably the most ground-shaking trade that would have completely changed the NFL 100%. It happened all the way back in 2007, and this is a trade that could have changed everything.
Can't wait for
the Raiders could have been good. Brett Favre wouldn't have been jumping to the Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers could have probably won a Super Bowl, although they did with Aaron Rodgers, and the Patriots may have not gone to the Super Bowl at all. And what I'm talking about is, back in 2007, Aaron Rodgers was a backup quarterback to the Hall of Fame Brett Favre. Randy Moss was coming off of his second horrific season in Oakland. Everyone was writing him off. Everyone thought that Randy was past his prime. Ergo, why he was traded for literally a bucket of peanuts when the Patriots acquired him. After the Oakland Raiders made everyone aware that Randy Moss was on the trading block, Brett Favre started vouching for him and told the front office that he wanted the Packers to go after Randy Moss. Rightfully so. Every single time Brett Favre's had a great deep threat, good things have happened. Look at Sterling Sharp. Look at Donald Driver. Look at pretty much any wide receiver that Brett Favre's played with, even Antonio Freeman. And guess what? They had a phenomenal asset to dangle in front of the Oakland Raiders. The Raiders were absolutely desperate for a quarterback, so it made a lot of sense to trade Aaron Rodgers for Randy Moss. However, the Packers wanted more than just Randy Moss. They also wanted the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, which the Raiders were not willing to trade. And honestly, I don't really know what they were thinking, but whatever. Instead, the Oakland Raiders used that pick on Jamarcus Russell, traded Randy Moss to the New England Patriots. Brett Favre started his journeyman career where he went to the Jets, to the Minnesota Vikings, and ultimately retired to promote Wrangler jeans full-time. But one will have to wonder what it would have looked like if Brett Favre had Randy Moss as his wide receiver. One would have to wonder how the Oakland Raiders would have looked like if they had Aaron Rodgers and say they kept their first overall pick and used it on Calvin Johnson instead. Aaron Rodgers and Calvin Johnson would absolutely be a remarkable tandem. And I kind of tear up thinking that we never got to experience that. But hey, at least we had Brady and Moss completely demolishing defenses and, losing to Eli Manning in the Super Bowl. This next one, I had to do some digging, and I'm not sure if it's true, so I'm going to let you guys decide, because it sounds crazy to me. This happened in 2010, and it has to do with the Pittsburgh Steelers being absolutely frustrated with Big Ben Roethlisberger. This is when he got into a motorcycle accident and almost died. And on top of that, he was also being accused of sexual assault and rape. So naturally, the Steelers were fed up with him, and they were looking to trade it. So as a result, two teams came forward and said, hey, we need a quarterback. We will happily trade for Big Ben Roethlisberger. These two teams were the St. Louis Rams at the time and the Oakland Raiders. The Steelers supposedly reached out to the Rams first, but the Rams weren't really interested with Ben Roethlisberger because they already were in a position to draft Sam Bradford. And the Rams didn't want to take on the burden of Big Ben Roethlisberger's legal issues. So what's really funny is the Steelers essentially tried to trade Ben Roethlisberger for Sam Bradford, and that trade fell through really, really quickly. So their backup plan was turning to the Raiders, who were reportedly the only other team that was down to trade for Big Ben. The Steelers were interested in trading Big Ben and the number 18 pick to Oakland for the number 8 pick. From here, the story gets a little weird, and we're not sure why it doesn't happen. Ben Roethlisberger, of course, ultimately stays in Pittsburgh, and the Raiders use that number 8 overall pick on Darius Hayward-Bay. And the Raiders ultimately drafted Rolando McClain, so it's not like this was a home run, no trade for everybody. It appears to be a gigantic L for the Raiders and the Rams, and a gigantic W for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Speaking of the Raiders, I guess we could discuss how Dan Marino almost got traded to the Raiders, and this is after the 1989 season. The Dolphins finished with an 8-8 record, and that's not what Don Shula was used to. So this was now 4 years in a row where the Dolphins missed the playoffs, and Shula thought that a massive change needed to be made. That change, initially, he thought was getting rid of Dan Marino. And it wasn't just a thought either. Don Shula actually reached out to the Raiders owner, Al Davis, about a trade. Talks progressed so far that there was actually a verbal agreement in place. The trade looked like it was going to happen, but Don Shula got cold feet and upped the asking price twice. It was too much even for Al Davis, and the deal fell through. Dan Marino didn't get traded, and he managed to win 12 games the very next year. But at the end of the day, Marino still never won a Super Bowl. You have to wonder if he joined the Raiders, maybe his story would have been rewritten. And the final trade we're going to discuss, and this is by far the biggest L I've ever seen, is John Elway nearly getting traded to the Washington Redskins. Apparently, the Redskins tried to do this in 1991. According to former Washington general manager Charlie Casserly, it almost did happen. He says in an interview with the Washington Post that the front office talked to the Broncos about it almost on a whim. Surprisingly, the Broncos actually considered the offer and asked for an offensive tackle by the name of Jim Leahy. No, not that Jim Leahy. And you can assume, yes, Washington failed to get John Elway because they didn't want to get rid of some guy named Jim Leahy. Of course, Washington did go on to win the Super Bowl that year, and John Elway won his Super Bowls way after the prime of his career on the back of Terrell Davis. It's still fun to wonder how much better that Washington team could have been with John Elway under center. At the end of the day, at least everyone came out of this no trade as a winner, although on paper, it sounds like a huge L. I feel like the Redskins could have been a dynasty. That's it for this video, guys. Let me know if there are any other trades that you think we were missing, and we could do a part 2 to this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Microphone, and I'll catch you guys in our next upload.
But there we have it, y'all. 7 greatest NFL trades that almost happened. Might do another video after this. I'm hungry, but we'll see. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all later.